Tonight on GamePoints episode 387, there are mass layoffs once again rocking the industry. Nintendo is suing emulator YUZU, and musical legend Nobuo Uematsu might be slowing down in his later years, which is actually a good thing. All that and more in just a moment. But first, I want to remind everyone here this is an audience interactive podcast, so if you're watching us live at Twitch TV /GamePoints or later at any myriad video hosting platforms, feel free to join the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns you might have. I want to know what you all think out there. All right, let's go ahead and get with the first major story. Now, typically, I save these for the end of the show because they've been happening every week for what seems to be going on 2 goddamn years now. Maybe if only some slight exaggeration, but I've been reporting on layoffs rocking the industry for at least a good 18, if not 24 months. However, when they are significant, they can't help but be the leading story, and these ones, well, they are significant. Right here is a blog post from Sony directly over at their site. The link to this and all the stories we talk about will be provided down below, by the way. Difficult news about our workforce. Written by Jim Ryan Ryway, the outgoing president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, coming back from a tour of one of the studios that's actually getting shut down in well, I'd say a twist of irony, but honestly, that's just kind of the cold-hearted son of a bitch these people are. Moving to the story article itself. We have made the extremely hard decision to announce our plan to commence a reduction of our overall headcount globally by about 8%, or about 900 people, subject to local law and consultation processes. Employees across the globe, including our studios, are impacted. Keep in mind that depending on where you may or may not be working at, sometimes they can just fire you that day. Other times they have to go through a process of consultation where they try to find ways to maintain your job before letting you go. But typically, once you get told, hey, we're getting rid of you, they're just kind of delaying the inevitable. It might give you some time to maybe look for another job at the very least, though. Going on back to the article. Where are we at? Here is the actual email that was sent out to the Sony people, by the way, if you're Sony employees. For those of you in the US, all impacted employees will be notified today. So those getting laid off are getting told today, hey, you're gone. If you're in the UK, these are the following proposals. Once again, UK, I believe, has a law that says you have to propose that you're doing something before you can do it when it comes to laying off, but that doesn't mean there might be a chance that it gets derailed. No, it's happening. The PlayStation Studios London studio will close in its entirety. That's a whole studio gone. Remember what I said when 2024 started? I said the layoffs are going to make 2023 look tame in comparison. I also said this is going to be the year of studio closures. Not reductions in workforces, but entire studios, possibly even publishers going kaboom. Not layoffs, not mass reductions, gone. Sony Studios is now part of that. There will also be reductions at Firesprite as well. Not on this list is Media Molecule. That's somewhat surprising to me given Dream's lackluster response and how long that development time was. However, Media Molecule did win a BAFTA, which kind of gives them an air of immunity for a little bit. That won't protect that studio for long, and they might get cut in the next round of layoffs, and there will be another round of layoffs at Sony. Nothing official yet, but I'm promising you that's going to happen. I think about June or so is my guess on that. In Japan, they'll implement a next career support program. Details will be communicated separately, so Japan is also getting hit by this as well. It is affecting the company globally. Excuse me. Still got that little bit of a cough. 900 people, in addition to all the other people that have been laid off, and we're not even in the third month, 2024 yet. I won't go and give my typical rigmarole where I say get your resumes ready, start being prepared for such a thing to happen, because that's a refrain that I've been saying for 18 months now. This is going to get bloody. Even more so than it already has been. You are going to see layoffs in the thousands at multiple companies. You already have. And these are only the surface cuts. You're going to have a myriad of projects canceled. You're going to have beloved studios even get hit with this. We're going to go to another blog post from Sony about an update they once again provided down below. The following US based studios and groups are going to be impacted by a reduction in workforce: Insomniac, Naughty Dog, as well as their technology, creative, and support teams. These in addition to some smaller reductions in other teams across PlayStation Studios. Insomniac and Naughty Dog. Those two, along with give me 1 second here. I'm just gonna cough. My apologies. Those are two of Sony's biggest and most critically and commercially successful studios. Makers of Spider-Man and The Last of Us. They're not even safe. In fact, I would imagine that those studios probably have higher names on the chopping block because they make so much money. Now, I don't know. I use that term relatively. The people at those studios can command a higher salary because of how successful their games have been. But that also makes them prime targets for workforce reductions. Because if I can get rid of someone who's been at Naughty Dog for 15 years making bank, I could probably replace them for 2 or 3 fresh out of college recruits and still end up saving some money on the side. Whether that is right or wrong, whether it makes good business decision or not, whether it's good for the health of the studio is incidental. Because right now, it is panic mode at not just Sony, but Microsoft, maybe even Nintendo, even despite them being mostly cash flush company. And it's outside of the games industry as well. Everyone is panicking. There is one thing on a company's mind for 2024: survive by any necessary. And if that means, like we've been seeing, parting ways of some very high-end names, look no further than Joe Blackburn getting the axe at Bungie, then you do it. No one is safe. It's going... I don't know how many times I could say it's going to be bad. But everyone seems surprised when one of these happens. When you're like, oh my god, they fired so-and-so. It's like, yeah, so-and-so makes a lot more money than 2 interns do that they can replace them with. Sure, they might be losing quality. They're absolutely losing experience. But that's not what the company's thinking right now. Because you can have all the experience in the world, and it ain't going to save you when the tax man comes, or the creditors come, or the check is due, or insert your cliche here. Now, I can also hear the cries of, like, why aren't the C-suite level people taking pay cuts, and why aren't they getting fired? I absolutely think some of these people could be fired. In Jim Ryan's case, he is being, in my opinion, forced out. They call it a retirement, and yes, he is going to get what is called a golden parachute and be sent on his way. But they're facing repercussions as well. It was Ryan that made these decisions to lean into live service games, which seems to be blowing up in Sony's face. And I think the writing on that is very clearly on the wall. Yes, Helldivers is a big success. Helldivers also isn't going to make Sony millions of dollars. The marketing budget for Spider-Man 2 will probably end up being higher than how much Helldivers 2 was making. What they're looking at is shit like Suicide Squad. And going, and you want us to do what? With our already strained resources? No. So you might not like the fact that Jim Ryan is probably going to get a nice payout on his way out, but they are swinging the axe even at that level. Furthermore, getting rid. 1 second. Sorry, I still got that sickness that's been going on. Furthermore, you could reduce salaries at that level to 100%. It's not going to be enough to save the company. It's just not. I'm not justifying their actions. I'm just giving you the cold hard facts. They're in major, major trouble. And people are going to lose, rightly or wrongly. And it's not going to stop. Sony wasn't the only company to announce layoffs today, by the way. We'll get into more of those in a second. But for those of you who are saying, oh, this doesn't affect me, I don't care as long as they keep getting games, well, a bunch of games are canceled too. We go to IGN. Sony reportedly canceled Twisted Metal live service game as part of the mass layoffs. Here we go. Sony has reportedly canceled an unannounced Twisted Metal live service game as part of today's mass layoffs. Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier said the game was in early development at the UK studio Firesprite, but Sony had earlier confirmed it's affected by job cuts. According to Schreier, the Twisted Metal game wasn't yet greenlit, so they were in the pitch phase. While PlayStation London's studio is set to shut down, it seems also likely to co-op PlayStation 5 game set in Modern Fantasy London is also cancelled. That's at least 2 games that we know of getting the axe. Probably more. Who knows how much? Who knows what else out there is just getting canceled? We had Embracer cancel numerous games that were unannounced. Among them, probably the newest Deus Ex, which I was really looking forward to. That's gone, and who knows what else was in their catalog that's been whacked. So for those of you sitting back saying this doesn't affect me, it directly fucking affects you. You're not getting stuff anymore. You're losing games. If you want to be a very cynical take on it. It's and notice, by the way, live service games. Twisted Metal live service, co-op PlayStation 5 Fantasy London Modern Fantasy London game. It's co-op, likely online, likely live service. The live service bubble has busted. In addition to just the economic model of AAA game development in general is popping. But you had so many studios, so many publishers leaning into live service, and their games aren't even finished yet. And they've been working on them for 5 years. And none of them are succeeding. You're going to see a lot of games getting canceled. A lot of them. Skull and Bones was fortunate in the fact that it was almost already finished, and Ubisoft just figured to polish up the corners and shove it out the door and hopefully get at least some return back on it. Other studios aren't going to be so lucky. People are done. They don't have the money for live service anymore. They're already having to pay ungodly amounts at the grocery store. You're not going to pay an extra $5 to $15 a month for that fucking battle pass when you have to determine whether or not you're going to be having ramen or eggs for the week. And what's exceptionally annoying about all of this is that many people saw this coming. Gamers, to use that specifically loaded term, have been saying stop with the fucking live services for years now. Now, they make a lot of money when they hit. When they hit. You gotta figure what? 1 out of 10 are actually a big success? 1 out of 20? 1 out of 30? Actually makes back the money that they put into sinking into doing it. And once you have a hit, that's it. You're doing that one game, period. Because of a need for content to keep the recurring spending going is voracious. You devote your entire studio's energy into cranking out weekly, monthly, quarterly events for that one game. You don't go anywhere else. That is now what you do forever, that studio, if they have a successful game. Look no further than Bungie, who did Destiny 2, and it took them how long to even start working on Marathon? And it's not like Bungie's doing all that well right now either. We have hit maximum saturation, chasing a very specific style of game that has a potential for a high rate of return, but the risk is so high that if you make a failed bet, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars. You're hoping for that 1 in 10 chance. But they're all coming up bust now. All of them. And the industry is going to pay for its hubris. Which means that the employees are going to pay for the hubris. Let me know what you guys think down below. I don't think I have anything more to add to the Sony topic. We have a couple more layoffs that I want to talk about. But they're going to kind of follow the same theme. The days of free, easy money, of people having disposable income, of angel investors, of venture capitalists dropping millions of dollars hoping for the same thing, where it's like we'll put 100 bets out there and hope that 10 of them pay off high. That's all drying up. And I don't see any really positive hope for the bigger publishers out there. Small indie teams, even they're going to get hit, but I think they might be able to survive if they can work with their means. That's why I think Nintendo ultimately is safe. Nintendo is a very cash flush company. They don't have many debts. Yes, I'm sure that they will have some layoffs, but they tend not to put their necks out the way these other people do. And as such, they might actually come out of this even stronger than everyone else. We'll see over the next year or so how that plays out. Next story here, 1 second. Oh, when you do a live show. Next story here from Massively Overpowered. Star Citizen followers uncover additional layoffs at Cloud Imperium Games that reference relocation and restructuring. That's right, hot on the heels of the Sony layoffs, we have Star Citizen, or Cloud Imperium Games rather, laying off people too. To the article. A couple weeks ago, we caught word that Star Citizen's game director leaving his job position after 9 years at Cloud Imperium Games. That means he's worked there since after Star Citizen was announced, spent almost a decade there, and that game still isn't out. With most assuming that he primarily left his job because he wasn't willing to relocate to Manchester, UK. Except his story is not unique, as followers of the Alpha Sandbox have uncovered additional layoffs at the company that were categorized as a restructuring and are presumed to be a result of CIG wanting their employees to relocate. In addition to game director Todd Pappy, CIG also lost its lead producer Jake Ross, assistant design director Dan Tuffin, whose game profile was changed from developer to backer. Kind of fucked up. He's still a developer on the game. He still worked on the game development even if he's not working anymore, but I digress. Austin lead designer Dane Kubica, Austin QA lead Vincent Shintara, or Shinatra, sorry, Austin senior QA analyst Andrew Rexoff, and Turbulent producer Annie Beauford. Information on most of these layoff reports are obviously piecemeal, but Kubica references the layoff from his post as due to, quote, restructuring, while Beauford references leaving a, quote, highly toxic company. Not the first person to say such a thing, by the way. There have been rumors that Chris Roberts and his wife are a little bit tyrannical when it comes to how that office is run. After the end of January, we saw a mass dismissal disguised as relocation of staff when very few could have wanted to move to other countries or continents with little or no notice occurred. It seems to be that specifically Beaufort is saying the whole reason why there's relocation happening to Manchester is that Cloud Imperium Games knows it's going to force people to have to quit. And I don't know how it is in the UK, but I do know that in America, if you quit a job, you get less in the end than if you were terminated from a job or laid off from a job, depending on what nomenclature you want at the time. It's an underhanded, shady way, if true, to reduce your workforce. It also somewhat jives with all the rumors of underhanded dealings and abuse at Cloud Imperium Games over the past decade or so. Allegations I won't get too deeply into here, but there's a lot of stuff you could take a look at how we say shady that company runs. I think I've used shady like 4 or 5 times already, but I do not trust Cloud Imperium Games. Put it that way. Not to be outdone, also Supermassive Games, makers of Until Dawn, the Dark Pictures games, The Quarry, they're having layoffs. Posted on their X account. It's no secret that the game industry is currently facing significant challenges, and unfortunately, we are not immune to this. After much deliberation with deep regret, we are therefore undertaking a reorganization of Supermassive Games. As a result, we are entering a period of consultation in which we anticipate result in the loss of some of our colleagues. Supermassive's a UK company, by the way. It's that thing where they have to go into consultation, but they're getting rid of people. Some reports put that as 150 staff members are at risk, and they will be at least laying off 90 people. Also, because the hits just keep coming today, Deck 9 is suffering layoffs. Deck 9 are the people that made the recent Expanse game that was in the Telltale style, as well as some of the Life is Strange games. Like many others in the game industry, right now Deck 9 has been affected by the game industry's worsening market conditions. Today we made the difficult decision to lay off 20% of our staff. This is a company, by the way, from what I understand, did actually take pay cuts at the CEO level. Smaller studio, it's not like they have like a Jim Ryan or anything running it, or a Phil Spector like that. But apparently, upper management did take pay cuts, and it still was not enough to save 20% of their staff. I am telling you, to the people who keep saying the CEOs need to get pay cuts, it's not going to protect people. Drop in a bucket compared to how much these companies need to cut. And that's just today. We're Tuesday. This is all within the past week. Most of this came out within the past day or hour or two. It's going to get worse. Specifically with the Sony stuff. I promise you the Sony cuts are only the latest round. Will be a series of them. I am convinced come June you will see another massive, like 900 to 1,500 people laid off. At Sony. How that's going to come out looking, we'll see, but of course our best wishes and condolences go out to as many of these people as we can. Hopefully you find your feet in another industry, because games are going to be evaporating quick. You're going to be having people with 20, 25, 30 years of experience competing alongside people who have zero experience coming out of college. The job market is going to be saturated with talent. Talent that will be willing to work for peanuts just to get back in the industry. Assuming that they don't leave it completely. Or, what I recommend doing, and I know it's hard, form your own studios. Go independent. Take a core team of people you know and like Kickstarter, Patreon. I know that's not ideal, and I know that doesn't necessarily protect you. But I think banking on your own talent and making money off of your own work probably be better than trusting these companies to stick around for the next couple of years. Because I think a lot of them are going to go bye-bye. Oh, God, what a horrendous day for layoffs. And for coughing, because I can't seem to stop. Moving on to our next topic as well. Yeah, damn. Moving on to our next topic as we move on from the layoffs. The Switch 2, rumored to have been delayed until next year, seems to be backed up by many other reports, according to Video Game Chronicle at least. Switch 2 was targeting a March 2025 and was delayed to avoid shortages, at least on the report claims. That's according to a new report by Japanese news publication Nikkei, which is paywalled, which claims that the Switch successor's internal delay, reported first by VGC and then others earlier in the month, was partially so that Nintendo could avoid potential hardware supply issues. Now, Nintendo has never been one to shy away from artificial scarcity. In fact, they tend to embrace it rather wholeheartedly. But everyone's feeling the pinch right now, and I think Nintendo is in a unique position to roll out a Switch successor and get buku sales for it, because you'll probably have the PlayStation 5 Pro, you might have a new iteration of Xbox around that time as well. And they're both going to be more expensive than whatever the Switch 2 is. You would imagine, you would presume. So, in a landscape of 3 consoles in 2025, late 2024, early 2025, and you're going to pick between one of them, but cash is already strapped, which one are you going to go for? Well, you're naturally going to go for the cheapest one, which is Nintendo. Unless you can't find one. In which case, then you might go for PlayStation or Xbox. However, That is why you want as many as you can get, because people can't find it, they will go for the next step. So it makes sense to me, anyways, using my own logic here, I could be wrong, to delay it a couple months to make sure you have as many as you can flood the market with to drown out competition. Hey there, Rocco. Good to have you. If anyone can call in the favors when they need resources of their skills, it's Nintendo. They don't even need to call in favors there, Rocco. They're very cash flush right now. Of all the companies that are having issues right now, Nintendo's the one that actually has just a bunch of cash in their war chest. They're ready to go. They rarely go into debt. It's Nintendo is a very well managed company. Now that doesn't mean that you might like them. That doesn't mean they might make the things that you want look no further than the Mother 3 shit starting back up again. But they are very well managed. So I think that Nintendo, of any game publisher or developer out there, is in the best position to weather that is going to be the storm of 2024. For certain. Back to the article. Nikki says that expects the next Nintendo console to be a hybrid portable home device similar to the Switch, as reported previously by VGC. The publication also corroborates that the machine will have a larger screen than the original Switch's 6.2-inch display. That could be 6.5, it could be 6.3, it could be 7, we don't know. Nikki also notes that the Switch 2 could yet slip beyond March 2025, dependent on the manufacturing and how much software is ready for launch. I'd also imagine they want a good set of releases when it first drops. I think it's kind of obvious that the next Metroid Prime is going to be whatever a Switch successor exclusive. I doubt it'll be on the Switch. Nintendo tends to hard switch when a new generation comes out. They don't like to do the half-step console shit. They don't like to do the porting. They just tend to jump right into the next thing. You bet they get Skyrim. Yeah, it's possible they get Skyrim. It's on everything, and it'll be a way for Bethesda to get some cheap shit real quick, for sure. When asked about it, I think when asked about when you'll stop making sports for Skyrim, Tom Howard openly said, when you guys stop buying it, people are still fucking buying it. So I fully expect that to actually be the case. While on the topic of Nintendo, sorry, my voice is kind of starting to go a little bit too. Here from Steven Totillo. New. Nintendo is suing the creators of popular Switch emulator YUZU, saying their tech illegally circumvents Nintendo software encryption and facilitates privacy. Seeks damages for alleged violations and a shutdown of the emulator. Nintendo has a habit of waiting until something gets big or finished, then sick the lawyers on them. It's like an extra little bit of twisted fucked upness, where they're like, no, we're going to wait for you to put all the time and effort into it and then hit you with it. They are very aggressive when it comes to protecting their copyrights and protecting their licenses from piracy. You can see the beginning of the court document there. By the way, I will put a link to the full court document down in the description below if you want to take a look at it yourself. Nintendo notes that more than 1 million copies of Tears of the Kingdom downloaded prior to the game's launch release. Says Yuzu's Patreon support doubled during that time. Basically arguing the point that Yuzu's business model helps piracy flourish. I think that's the big thing, by the way, too, is that YUZU has a Patreon and they're making money off of it. That goes that extra mile when Nintendo might really feel compelled for sure to hammer them. It is going to be interesting to see if they do have a case here, because emulation is a bit of a gray area. I shouldn't say emulation. Emulators. And it all stems from that VHS thing that happened in the 80s. A bunch of movie studios were suing the makers of VHS players because they're like, hey, you can copy movies and steal movies and give them out to friends. And the VHS manufacturer's like, no, this is meant for just recording video. What people do with it is on them. Same idea with YUZU. But if you can show that YUZU, that its sole purpose is emulating Switch stuff, then you might have a problem. I don't know. I guess the question is, can YUZU's lawyers hold out longer than Nintendo can stay solvent? Or the other way around. Can Nintendo's lawyers outlast YUZU's solvency before a decision is handled? Because I could see Nintendo going, we might not win, but we're going to put you in court for 5 years. A lot of people can't afford that. And it's not like YUZU is a major company. And this can... It's just Nintendo being Nintendo. They love to do this stuff, and they love waiting till the last minute to hammer people with it. And they are very protective of that stuff. Let's not forget Gary Bowser, a man who was fined millions of dollars, will now spend the rest of his life paying back Nintendo like a couple $100 a paycheck at a time. So Nintendo is very, very aggressive when it comes to this. Take a look at chat here real quick. Laughing my ass off, Nintendo is suing people over really news. I think that when Nintendo isn't in the middle of a lawsuit, it's more news over. Yeah, Nintendo is... I'm losing my voice. Nintendo is very aggressive when it comes to this shit. For sure. Absolutely. I got one more news story that I want to talk about, and it is about a legend possibly retiring soon. Final Fantasy music legend Nobuo Uematsu doesn't think he'll ever compose a whole video game again. That's not to say he's retiring outright, but the work it takes to create an entire soundtrack for a video game is years worth of effort. And this man has certainly earned his rest. Going on to the article. Legendary video game music composer Nobuo Uematsu has said he doesn't think he'll ever be able to work on that he doesn't think he'll be able to compose an entire video game soundtrack ever again. Uematsu's most famous for composing numerous soundtracks to the first 9 Final Fantasy games, and is working on numerous subsequent entries. Although Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth contain soundtracks created by different composers, Uematsu still composed the main theme for both games, and that's the kicker. It's not like he is doing the entire soundtrack anymore. He's still going to be making things. He's just doing 1 or 2 big musical scores at the moment. Yes, Watermelon. OST sound is very, very exhausted. Because it's more than just, I'm making the big theme. You're making the battle music. You're making the town music. You're making the 2-minute jingle that plays when you're in a shop. It's a lot of time and effort, and this man is getting up there in the years. Back to the article. Now in a new interview with German publication Zeit Online, ahead of a performance of his new orchestral show, Megrenon? Heart of Ice, Uematsu said he thinks his days of composing few video game music soundtracks are over. Asked if he ever felt that one day nostalgia could take over and convince him to write an entire soundtrack for a game again, as opposed to just a main theme, Uematsu replied that he didn't see it happening. As far as Final Fantasy is concerned, I'm still involved in writing the main themes for the games, but I don't think I'll compose music for a whole game again. You have to give it full throttle for 2 or 3 years, and I don't think I have that physical and mental strength to do it anymore. I'd rather use the time that I have left to work on other projects that I love, such as compositions like Murderon or my band Uematsunobu Kon-Tiki. This man has earned his rest. He has been a workhorse since the 80s. He has done hundreds of tracks, if not thousands of tracks, for multiple video games, even outside of Final Fantasy. He is one of the few names that people recognize. Just, I don't want to say an offhand conversation, but you don't have to go too deep into fandom to know who this man is. Which brings up a question. As our legends are aging out, Uematsu, Kenji Inafune, Shigeru Miyamoto, etc., who's there to replace him? Who will be the next big generation of Japanese game developers to come? We have a couple of very prominent American game developers, Amy Hennig, Ken Levine, Neil Druckmann, Cory Barlog. But it really does seem that the Japanese market is starting to age out. The American names that I mentioned earlier have a good couple decades still in them. They're not too old. But a lot of these people here that we're referencing in Japan have been in the game industry since the 80s, since it really first started. Who's replacing them? Are there people ready to take up the wings? Are is there going to be someone who is ready to make the next theme to Final Fantasy once Uematsu completely retires? Who is getting the baton handed off to him? I wonder. If you guys have any suggestions, by the way, please let me know. I'd be very curious. I just don't know the names of any of these the new blood, as it were. I'm not saying they're not out there. I am just ignorant to who they may be. And with that question, I think we'll wrap things up for right now. Please let me give me your suggestions on that. I'm very curious to know who might be with us for another 20 or 30 years that can reach that level of fame. But for now, that does it for the show. This has been GamePoints episode 387. Once again, thank you for bearing with my coughing and scratchy throat. I'm going on week three of getting better from whatever the hell I had. I feel fine, but once we get around this time, things start getting a little scratchy. If you like the show here and you want to support us, you know what to do. Like, bits, follow, subs, all that good stuff. I'm at X on Capitalist Pig 21 if you want to come by and see my random postings over there. And I stream throughout the week as well here at Twitch TV/GamePoints if you want to come on by and say hi. Everyone who joins us live, thank you very much. Otherwise, hope that you enjoyed the show, regardless of when you watched it. And you know what streamers like, bits, follow, share, subs, all that good stuff. There's a Discord group you can join down below, as well as all the links to the stories that we talked about today. Until next week, this has been GamePoints. I'm out of here.